Do you ever wonder what God sees when He looks at you every day when you walk around, and what He sees in your future, what He sees in the now? Do you ever wonder what when you're going through stuff and you look in the mirror, you don't like what you see, or you're just going through a really rough time in your life, and you're wondering, I wonder what God thinks about me right now. Often I wonder what God thinks about me when I'm just going through things in life. And we go through ups and downs and things. Sometimes days are good, sometimes days are not so good. And does God see us any differently in the good times and in the bad times? And I think if we can get a true picture of what God sees all the time in our lives, we will reach whole other levels in our world. I think through the Bible, when you study leaders that God rose up to change history, to rescue His people, He had to first of all get them to see what He saw in them. He had to first of all get them to see the picture. When they closed their eyes, they could see the mighty warrior. They could see the hero that God saw in them. Until God could bring them to that place to see the picture that He saw, He couldn't use them. There's so many illustrations in the Bible. I look at the goldfish, a great analogy. A goldfish will only grow to the environment that it's in. You take a goldfish, you put it in a little bowl, it'll stay very small. You put it in a fish tank, and it'll grow bigger. You put that same goldfish in a pond, it'll grow quite large, but it'll stop at a certain place. You take that goldfish, you put it in a lake, a big monster lake, it will never stop growing. Now, it's the same fish, but the only difference is what it sees when it swims around. It sees no walls. It just sees unending space. It sees a big world. And that's what I believe God sees, because God sees differently than we do. God sees into our future. God sees what we're capable of. God sees us the way He made us, with a great destiny and a great purpose. And I believe that when we start seeing those pictures, when we fall asleep at night and we already know tomorrow's going to be a good day because God's got my back, because God sees what my tomorrow is like. He's already gone before us, the Bible says, prepared the way. There's a story in the Bible of a young man. His name was Gideon. And the children of Israel at that time were going through some rough times. I mean, they couldn't even grow crops. In fact, the enemy would let them grow their crop, and then it would wait till they harvest it. Then it will rummage through their stuff and steal all their food and their grain and take it for themselves. And it was a really, really bad time. And God wanted to rescue His people. But He was looking for a hero. He was looking for a warrior that he could believe in. And God always looks for people to change the situation. That's how God changes the world, through people. And God found this young man. And let me read you in Judges chapter 6, verse 11. His name was Gideon. It says, "Then the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great tree of Ophrah, which belonged to Joash of the clan of Abiezer. Gideon, son of Joash, was thrashing wheat in the bottom of a winepress to hide the grain from the Midianites. The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said," and now listen to this. This is what God saw in Gideon. He sent the angel and He says, "Mighty hero, the Lord is with you." I can just see Gideon. Here he was, hidden away in a wine press, down in a secret place, threshing out grain. You're just wondering when the enemy is going to come and steal his food away from him. And here comes the angel and says, "Mighty hero." That's what God. That was a picture of Gideon that God saw. Is a mighty man, a mighty hero. Now look what Gideon said. He says, "Sir," Gideon replied, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are all the miracles our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say the Lord brought us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites." Now look at the picture. This is a picture that Gideon saw when he closed his eyes at night. The Lord abandoned us. The Lord handed us over to the enemy. And every time he fell asleep with that picture and woke up with that picture, nothing ever changed. Until God could change the picture Gideon saw of himself, the way he saw him. And look what the Lord said. It says in verse 14, it says, "Then the Lord turned to him and said, 'Go with the strength you have.'" Now listen to this. He said, "Go with the strength you have." Not the strength I'm going to give you. God already saw the strength in Gideon to change and to rescue His people. But until He could change that picture in Gideon's heart, not in his mind, In his heart, he could see himself different as a warrior, as a hero, the way God saw him. He couldn't use him. He says, go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. And in verse 15 it says, but Lord, Gideon replied. Now listen to this. Here's the picture, the difference between God's picture and Gideon's picture. It says, but Lord, Gideon replied, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least in my entire family. That's how he saw himself. I'm nothing. I'm the least in my family. My family is the least in our clan. Our clan's the least in our whole country. And he just saw himself as a nothing. But God saw something different in Gideon. It says, the Lord said to him, I will be with you. You will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man. You see, until God could convince Gideon of how he saw him, he couldn't use him to fulfill his destiny. Gideon had a destiny to rescue God's people. God had raised him up as a leader. But until God could repaint the picture in the heart of Gideon as the lowest of his family, his family being the lowest in the whole clan, and the clan being the lowest in the country, until God could repaint that picture and have Gideon see himself through the eyes of God as a mighty hero, as a strength that he's got already inside of him. He says, go with the strength you have. Until God could repaint that picture, Gideon was pretty much useless to God in that aspect. But Gideon, as we know, when you read the story, Gideon rose up and he gathered 20,000 people. God said too many, and narrowed them down to 10,000. Then went down to the water. He did some things with them. And by the time Gideon was ready to go against the enemy, he had 300 people left. And he destroyed the enemy with 300 people. Why is that? Because now Gideon believed what God believed about him. Until you believe, if you're going through something in your world, I'm telling you, when you fall asleep at night and you're just in the midst of a storm, you've just been going through hell, and that's all you see, is the stuff you're going through. You know, maybe financial difficulties, maybe physical sickness in your body, and that's the only picture you ever see. God cannot change it until you can repaint that picture. Faith will rise up when you fall asleep at night and say, tomorrow is going to be a good day because God's got my back. I'm going to see myself through the eyes of God as a warrior princess, as a mighty hero. What are you going through? God can change that situation, but only after he can repaint that picture. See yourself through the eyes of God. God has such an amazing destiny for every single man, woman, and child. But until you see yourself through the eyes of God, just like Gideon, once he saw that picture God had for him, he was able to fight. He was able to succeed and have victory. There's a victory waiting for you on the other side of you seeing yourself victorious through the eyes of God.